That's where the collision was. And now one of the ironic things about the Andrea Doria, if we were to look at it real close, is she had 11 watertight compartments on her. And she could stay afloat with any 2 compartments flooded. But the way that the Stockholm struck us, she struck right in the middle of one of the compartments and breached the 2 compartments on either side. And so there's your critical number, 3 flooded compartments, and she couldn't stay afloat with that. I was 17 years old, and I was on the ship because my parents were living in Sicily. My father was a manager of an oil company over there. And I had spent the past 2 years in Europe, and I wanted to graduate with my senior class here in Norman. Remember, this was in 1956, which was only 11 years after the end of the Second World War. And Italy, like much of the rest of Europe, was pretty much in a state of shock and traumatized and recovering. And they put a lot of effort and pride into building this ship. The Andrea Doria was literally a work of art. It was very luxurious, but the most important thing was the art and the atmosphere on the ship. It was our last night at sea, and the activities pretty well wore down early that night because everybody basically wanted to prepare to disembark in New York. And I sat up with some other teenagers in the lounge area. We were the only ones in there, and we broke up around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I went back to my cabin, and I decided to take a shower. And I was in the shower when the collision took place. Fortunately, I was on the opposite side of the ship and somewhat aft of the damaged area. And I knew immediately that something was wrong. And the biggest clue to that was that the ship took on a list almost immediately. I came out of the shower and pulled on my pajama pants, and I grabbed a KLM flight bag. I made my way out to the deck and basically just went to the rail, and I stayed there. This went on for probably an hour. I thought it was odd that they were not lowering any lifeboats on our side of the ship, and learned later that because of the list of the ship that those lifeboats could not be lowered. And at that point you could not walk on the deck because of the slant, and basically I slid across the deck on my butt and made it down to the starboard side, which at that time was only about 10 or 12 feet off the water from the rail. And to my horror, all of the lifeboats except one were gone. I saw this last lifeboat getting ready to leave the ship, and I basically jumped, and I was quickly hauled into the lifeboat, and we just went putting off into the night to get away from the ship, and still had no clue where we were going or where we were. We did not know if there were other ships around. We did not know about our location. And for all we knew, we were going to be another Titanic. But anyway, after about probably 45 minutes or an hour, we came upon the Swedish ship, the Stockholm, which was the one that had run into us. And this ship was floating with its nose down in the water, and for all we knew, it would sink also. But anyway, we climbed a rope net up to the to get onto the Stockholm, and I absolutely refused to go inside. I grabbed a deck chair and just claimed that as my territory, and I stayed there. And the next morning, after the sun came up, then the fog had broken up, and we could see the Andrea Doria roll over and sink. And